Welcome back to Silent Paws and Brave Hearts. The knock came at 2 in the morning, 3 hard knocks, urgent, the kind that do not apologize for the hour. Marcus Turner was already awake. He had been lying on the couch in the dark for the past hour, one hand resting on Rex's back, staring at the ceiling and listening to the kind of silence that does not feel like peace. Rex had not slept either. The old German shepherd had been sitting upright since midnight, facing the front door, his ears high and perfectly still, his amber eyes fixed on something Marcus could not see, but had learned, over 6 years and 4 deployments, to trust completely. When the knock came, Rex did not bark. He simply turned his head and looked at Marcus, calm, certain, as if to say, "I already knew." Marcus rose slowly, moved to the door without turning on a single light, and said quietly, "Who's there?" A pause. Then a woman's voice, low, careful, threaded through with an exhaustion that went deeper than one sleepless night. "My name is Sarah. I met you 2 nights ago, on Route 9. You changed my tire." Marcus stood very still for a moment. Then he unlocked the door. The woman standing on his porch looked nothing like the woman he remembered from the dark roadside. That woman had been frightened but composed, holding herself together with both hands. This woman had been running. Her dark coat was damp from the November cold. There were shadows beneath her eyes, deep enough to belong to someone who had not truly slept in days. She clutched a canvas bag against her chest, the way a person clutches the last thing they have left. Rex stepped forward and pressed his nose gently to her hand. She looked down at him, and something in her face broke open just slightly, the way a person breaks when they have been strong for so long that one small act of gentleness becomes unbearable. Her eyes filled. She pressed her lips together and held it back. "Come inside," Marcus said. He did not ask questions. He put the kettle on, set a mug on the table in front of her, and sat down across from her and waited. Rex lay down at her feet, as though he had known her for years. Outside, the November wind moved through the oak trees in long, slow waves, and the house was very quiet. Sarah wrapped both hands around the mug and stared into it for a long moment. Then she began to talk. Her name was Sarah Calloway. She was 34 years old. She was a forensic accountant, the kind of person companies hired to find things that other people had worked very hard to hide. 8 months ago, she had been contracted to audit a mid-sized logistics firm in the city. Routine work on the surface, the kind of job she had done dozens of times. But 3 weeks into the audit, she had found something that was not supposed to be found. Money, large amounts of it, moving through a web of shell companies so carefully constructed that most auditors would have walked right past it. Sarah had not walked past it. She had followed the thread quietly, carefully, over the course of 2 more weeks, until the thread led somewhere that made her hands go cold at her desk in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. The money was connected to people, powerful people, people with the kind of reach that extended into places that were supposed to be beyond reach. She had taken her evidence to a federal contact, a man she had worked with once before, years ago, on a smaller case. He had told her she had done the right thing. He had told her to sit tight, that protection would be arranged, that the matter was being handled carefully at a level above his own. That had been 4 months ago. The protection had never fully arrived. And 3 weeks ago, the black SUV had appeared for the first time outside her apartment building. "I kept moving," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands around the mug were not. "Different motels, different towns. I thought if I kept moving, they couldn't—" She stopped, drew a slow breath. 2 nights ago, my tire blew on Route 9, and I had been driving for 6 hours, and I was so tired I couldn't think straight. She looked up at Marcus then, directly, the way people look at each other when they are about to say something that costs them something. "They were behind me on that road," she said. "I didn't know until later. They saw you stop. They saw you help me. And they ran your plate." The kitchen was very quiet. Rex lifted his head from the floor and looked at Marcus with those patient amber eyes. Marcus looked back at him for a moment. Then he looked at Sarah. "How long have you known they were watching me?" he asked. "Since yesterday morning," she said. "I am so sorry, Marcus. I never meant to." "I know you didn't." His voice was not hard. It was simply honest. "How many are there?" "At least 2, maybe more." Marcus nodded slowly. He turned his coffee mug in his hands, once, twice, the way a man turns a problem, looking at it from every side, measuring it, deciding. "All right," he said. "Then we figure this out, together." Sarah stared at him. "You don't have to." "Someone sat at my kitchen table and asked for help," Marcus said quietly. "That's all I need to know." He had always been that way. Everyone on Cedarwood Lane knew it, though few could have put words to exactly what they were seeing when they saw Marcus Turner. He was the man who showed up, quietly, without announcement, without expectation of anything in return. He fixed the widow's porch railing on a Saturday morning because he happened to notice it was loose. He drove a young veteran from 3 blocks over to his VA appointments every second Tuesday for 4 months, asking for nothing, saying little, simply being present in the particular way that some people are present, completely, without reservation, without a clock running in the background. He had learned it young, in a household that had very little, but never made a person feel the weight of that. His mother had been the kind of woman who fed whoever was at the table,
whether she had planned for them or not. His father had been the kind of man who pulled over for strangers on dark roads. Marcus Turner had stopped on Route 9 for Sarah Calloway because it was the only thing he knew how to do when someone needed help. It had not been a calculation. It had not been heroism. It had been as natural and as unthinking as breathing. He had not known what it would cost him. He was prepared to pay it anyway. Rex had met Marcus the summer of his 3rd deployment at a military working dog facility where the air smelled of dry earth and gun oil and the particular tension of animals trained to a razor's edge. Rex had been 2 years old then, all lean muscle and burning focus, his black and tan coat still bright with youth, his eyes carrying a watchfulness that Marcus had recognized the moment their eyes met across the compound. A creature that did not know how to be anywhere other than fully present. Their first patrol together had come 3 days later, a road outside a village where the dust lay wrong on the ground, and the air had that held breath quality that Marcus had learned to listen to the way other men listen for thunder. Rex had stopped walking, not slowed, stopped, his entire body gone still, nose working in long, careful pulls, eyes fixed on a patch of disturbed earth 8 feet ahead that Marcus's eyes had passed over twice without concern. Marcus had trusted him. He had called it in, held his position, and waited. The EOD team confirmed the find 40 minutes later, confirmed what Rex had known the moment they reached that stretch of road. After that, trust between them was not something Marcus had to think about. It simply existed, the way the ground exists beneath your feet, present and reliable whether you think about it or not. And when the papers were signed and the long process of coming home began, Marcus had fought through every form and every delay to make sure that coming home meant exactly what it should mean. Not Rex to a kennel, not Rex to a stranger's hands. Together, to a porch on a quiet street where an old soldier and an old dog could sit in the morning light and simply be at peace. It was the promise Marcus had been most grateful to keep. He spent what remained of that night on the phone. Quiet calls, careful words, the way a man makes calls when he knows that every detail matters and nothing can be wasted. a former Army brother now 3 years into a federal law enforcement position. A name Sarah gave him, her federal contacts supervisor, the one level above where things had stalled. A woman with a clipped, precise voice who listened without interrupting and asked 3 very specific questions at the end that told Marcus she already understood the situation in full. "We're moving," she said. "Keep them inside. We need a few hours." "Understood," Marcus said, and set the phone down on the kitchen table and looked at Rex, who was watching him from across the room with that quiet and total attention. "Few more hours," Marcus told him. Rex held his gaze for a moment. Then he walked over, turned once, and lay down directly across Marcus's feet, the full, warm weight of him, solid and certain. Marcus reached down and placed his hand on the dog's back. They waited together in the dark, the way they had waited together in other dark places, in other years, on the other side of the world, quietly, steadily, each one trusting the other completely. The black SUV arrived at 7:42 in the morning. This time it did not park at the end of the block. It pulled directly to the curb in front of the house. Both doors opened at once. The 2 men in charcoal suits stepped out with the unhurried deliberateness of people who believe they are in complete control of what is about to happen. One of them reached toward the inside of his jacket as they started up the porch steps. Rex came through the front door like a force of absolute nature. Not wild, not frenzied, something more precise than either of those things. The trained and total commitment of a military working dog who has spent years learning exactly where the line is and crosses it only when crossing it is exactly right. He hit the first man with the full weight of 85 pounds and took him cleanly off the porch steps. The second man stumbled back, reaching, and Marcus was already through the door and moving, every year of training still alive in his body, in his hands, in the cold, steady clarity of his mind. And then from the far end of Cedarwood Lane came the sound of engines, hard and fast, and federal vehicles were at the curb, and doors were opening, and voices were cutting through the cold morning air with authority. It was over in less than 2 minutes. Rex came back to Marcus the moment he heard his name, breathing hard, tail moving in long, slow arcs. There was a cut above his left eye, small and clean, where he had caught the edge of the wooden step. Marcus knelt down on the cold ground right there, right in the middle of everything, with agents moving around him and voices calling instructions and the whole machinery of consequence grinding into motion. And he put both hands on Rex's broad face and looked at him. "Good boy," he said. His voice came out low and rough, the way voices do when emotion moves through them without being invited. "You good, old man? You with me?" Rex looked at him with those amber eyes, patient, steady, unhurried as a morning with nowhere to be. Then he licked Marcus's hand once, slowly, the way he always had, and Marcus pressed his forehead gently against the dog's warm, silver-touched head and held it there, the 2 of them still in the middle of the noise and the cold and the consequence of everything, breathing together, the way they always had, in every quiet place and every terrible one. The case moved forward in the weeks that followed. The men were taken into custody. Sarah gave her testimony. The financial fraud she had uncovered unraveled in the careful and patient way that the truth unravels when someone is finally brave enough to pull the thread and stubborn enough to not let go. She called Marcus on a Thursday evening, 3 weeks later. A brief call, practical, but near the end of it she went quiet for a moment, and then she said something he had not expected. "I keep thinking about the moment you stopped on Route 9, she said. "You didn't know me. You didn't know what was behind me in the dark. You just pulled over." "You needed help," Marcus said. "I know," she said softly. "That's what I keep thinking about, that it was that simple for you." Marcus sat with that for a long time after the call ended. He sat on his porch in the gray and fading light of a late November afternoon, Rex warm and heavy at his feet, the last of the oak leaves letting go one by one in the easy wind. He thought about the choices a person makes when no one is watching, the small and unwitnessed decisions that say more about who a person truly is than anything they might put on a page or hang on a wall. He thought about courage, the large and visible kind that gets remembered, and the quiet kind that happens on dark roads in the middle of ordinary nights and is witnessed by no one except an old dog with silver in his muzzle and amber eyes that never miss a thing. He thought that perhaps the second kind was not smaller than the first. Perhaps it never had been. Rex lifted his head and looked up at him with those calm and patient eyes. Marcus reached down and scratched slowly behind the old dog's ears, the way Rex had always loved. And Rex closed his eyes and leaned into the warmth of that hand with a trust so deep and so complete and so quietly given that Marcus felt it, the way you feel the things that matter most, not loudly, not suddenly, but all the way through. True heroes are not always found on battlefields. Sometimes they're found on a dark road at 2 a.m, opening a door for a frightened stranger. Sometimes they are found kneeling in the cold beside a car that belongs to someone they have never met. Sometimes the greatest act of courage a person will ever perform is the simplest one, to see someone who needs help and to stop. Not because it is safe, not because it is easy, but because somewhere inside them, beneath everything that life has asked them to carry, they still know that it is right. Marcus Turner knew it, and Rex, faithful, patient, unshakable Rex, had never once let him forget it. If this story reached something in you today, if it reminded you that loyalty still lives in this world, that courage still walks quiet streets and dark roads, please subscribe to Silent Paws and Brave Hearts right now. Every week we bring you stories like this one, stories of veterans and faithful dogs, and the kind of heroism that never makes the headlines, but changes lives every single day. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. We will see you in the next story. Until then, stay loyal, stay kind, and always, always keep your porch light on. Silent Paws and Brave Hearts.